Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It's February 6th. Commissioner Pope is excused. Commissioner Morris, Commissioner Gordon are here. Extra agendas are on the back table. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First up is comments for items not on this agenda.
Never mind.
Hearing none, looking for the approval of minutes of January 30th.
I move to approve.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And regional water planning update, Austin McWiggins.
Would have been a good opportunity to maybe honor a commissioner with naming the water treatment facility in Grand Ronde after them or something. Thought about putting that on comments, not on the agenda. Yeah, commissioners here that could vote on something like that.
We can probably.
You have a proposal? I won't read it out loud. I'll just approve it.
Well, unfortunately, Commissioner Pope isn't here today. As he's really led a lot of the work that we've done with our regional water planning. And so we started out a couple years ago and we really wanted to figure out how we can maximize our water right that we have on the Willamette. So we have a 25 cubic foot per second water right that you're aware of that we got in 2007. There is our water right is restricted based on the flows in the Willamette, and if the flows fall below target flows in the Willamette, our water right turns off. And then we have the first right of refusal to purchase up to the 25 CFS from Adair Village to make up that gap. Adair Village's water right is a share the load, or there's a term for it, that theirs gets reduced, but only by 30%. So we would end up with roughly 12 million gallons per day with our water right in the summer. So it's a significant amount of water that has a lot of potential to help our communities in the future when they're experiencing water scarcity. So we really didn't want to lose it. Our water right, we have to perfect that water right by 2030, or we have to ask for an extension. And in order to get an extension, you actually have to be constructing the infrastructure in order to put it to beneficial use. And so we don't provide water. We're not going to put in a water facility if we don't work some kind of a deal with the community and how we're going to put this to use, that water right, and its priority date of 2007 and this opportunity to potentially purchase additional water goes away. So what we developed a strategy to do this, and the first thing we wanted to do was really update all of the community water systems water projections. So we hired our consultant GSI, and they went and they evaluated all of the different water providers that we have, looked at their master plans, and then moved out their water projections to 2070. And so we are just sort of updating so that everybody sort of had an idea of really what they thought their surplus or deficits could be in the future, and sort of the timing of things and when. And then we wanted to develop a regional water supply concept and really what the cost of the concept would be. So is it possible for us to intertie different water providers together? And so, you know, what we found back in 2005 when we were looking at the regional water needs, we found at that time that some of our water providers are going to have surplus water at 2050 and others are going to have a deficit. We have plenty of water in Polk County, but we just don't have the water at the right place at the right time. And so we felt like, well, let's look and see what kind of opportunities there could be and what would it cost. And really the idea behind this was just to have an engineering firm sort of give us these rough estimates and these rough plans so that we could just agree on roughly what things were going to cost and what those opportunities could look like. And so what really came out of that was, you know, it's the low-hanging fruit is Independence and Monmouth, and potentially Lucky Mew. And then connecting Dallas was significantly more. So it was somewhere around, I don't know, 80 to 120 million to develop a regional water system for Independence, Monmouth, Polk County. These are just rough numbers that we use to just be able to talk about these concepts. If you wanted to add, if Dallas wanted to join, it went up to 140 to $200 million. But in order to really get Grand Round and get Perrydale and get those a lot of our other community water providers, Dallas would really need to be connecting into this regional system. And so it really just was a way to sort of filter out like what kind of opportunities are there, who could participate, who could benefit, is the cost really worth the benefit of being able to have access to this water for planning purposes today. And I think it was very receptive. I mean, the water providers, last week, we kind of had our closeout meeting, and a lot of the water providers came and wanted to hear really what ended up ultimately happening with this project. And so we felt pretty positive about the participation that we had from the water providers. And then this project really brought Independence and Monmouth together to have these regional talks. So when we started this, Independence really wasn't looking at utilizing the Willamette River. And we know that Independence has a 2.9 million gallon per day water right from 03 that doesn't turn off. And Monmouth has a sister water right that's also 2.9 million gallons per day on the Willamette from 2003. And that water doesn't turn off. So we knew that they had these water rights, and they really weren't putting it in their water master plans, and it really wasn't being talked about. And those water rights have to be perfected or an extension by 2026. And so the timeline is really moving on those.
Both Independence and Monmouth?
Both Independence and Monmouth. And so we felt that this would be an opportunity for us to explore, like, what is it going to take, maybe if we regionally work together in order to sort of perfect these. And so in the beginning of this project, Independence really didn't want to participate, but Independence kicked it into high gear. And they updated their water master plan to include their water right on the Willamette. They have started the process to purchase property in the south part of the city in order to put in. Right now, they're really looking at a collection well with a rainy collector rather than an intake in the river. It's both surface water. It's kind of the same thing, but a little different. But it's not known exactly whether or not that rainy collector would work. They've hired they fired the engineering company that they were working with originally to do their water planning, and they hired the company that we hired to do our regional water planning process, and then they hired an engineering company, a new engineering company to do their engineering work. That engineering company did a bid and an estimate based on putting in water collection and water treatment for the total regional water supply. And so Independence really is cooperating, and they're asking for these bids at a region for a system that would work with a regional water supply. When we started this, we also wanted to be able to work out some basic governance for how regional water would work, sort of talk about those concepts and put together a draft IGA. That was really the scope of work a couple of years ago when we put this together. So we had some discussions about the governance model, and we sort of have just left that a little bit unexplored beyond the fact that Independence really is going to own the facilities, and then different water providers could buy in later. So Independence needs it now. They're going to build it for themselves. And so really how things are shared, how capital is raised, all those things, it really is the approach of having just IGAs between the different communities, especially in the beginning, rather than pursuing some other more complex approach or trying to agree on some complex approach. And so we wanted to put together some base IGAs. So we hired Clark Balfour, who's a renowned water attorney in Oregon, and helped us with our Adair water right stuff back in the late 2000s. And we put together sort of a base IGA to really talk about just getting the water intake, whether it's a rainy collector or intake in the river, getting that sized for regional, what it's going to cost additional beyond what Independence would pay for it to be designed and engineered just for them, and getting the extension on all of the water rights. And so we sort of came up with sort of this IGA where you can get off at any point after you do the initial sizing and construction of that intake. So for the treatment facility, there's there's no commitment to going to the treatment facility. Independence is committed to building it where you'd have treatment sleds that you could add. And so as a water provider wanted to be able to access this water, there's the capacity and capability to put in a sled to treat that water. How much Independence is going to charge for that water and how that's going to work, none of that's been worked out, but it would be clear that it's not raw water, it's treated water, and your ability is to come in and access treated water. But Monmouth really hasn't done the update to their water master plan. Their water master plan doesn't really contemplate their 2003 water right. Putting in a treatment facility for surface water treatment's expensive. They haven't really planned for how they would pay for that, to participate, or any of those things. So Monmouth has been much slower to come around than Independence. Independence absolutely does not want to lose that 2.9 million gallon per day water right that they have. They absolutely want to be able to have access to Polk County's water. Polk County's water makes it easier for if you've got two water providers that are basically drawing water from the same location, they're sort of competing against themselves with the water flows. And Polk County's water right really sort of helps to even out some of that, the impacts that one provider could have on another provider, and can make it a little bit more equitable. And so they really understand that, and they want to be able to preserve that. Monmouth is a little bit slower to come around. So we've wrapped up the process. We have a draft IGA that we spent a lot of time really working out what Monmouth's concerns are, what Independence's concerns are, what some of our core concerns are, and figured out what are the things that we can agree on. What are the things that, we're not going to cross this line, and figuring out how to make an off ramp for that, or how to push that out further so that we can cooperate in the near term in order to get some extensions. And that's kind of where it's at. We're expecting to have a closeout document from the consultant that'll really wrap up all of the technical memos that they've prepared for us from when we started this project, with sort of the outcomes and all the draft documents that we've had, and really memorialize this process so that later on we'll be able to see, exactly what we did and what our intent was. And so I would think that we'll have that document in the next couple of months. And after that, it's simply going to be trying to work on IGAs with Independence for sure, in order to get an extension on our water right, and hopefully potentially in Monmouth as well.
This is incredible work. The county is uniquely positioned as a entity that does not provide water, but has something of value that could be shared regionally. So just the work that you and Commissioner Pope have done to bring all the partners to the table is fantastic. So thank you. I think it's really critical that we size this intake, size the things appropriately for future planning at the onset. And obviously each jurisdiction has their own constraints. They're, responsible to their ratepayers and their citizens. But we're able to see kind of the big picture. So anything we can do to encourage that. I'm just thinking out loud here, but and this could depend on how this affects our water deficit regionally, what those risks are. But finding some federal appropriations or lobbying, our federal senators and representatives to get some money to sort of further sweeten the deal for everybody to sort of share this in this program. Because I would hate to see just a single jurisdiction partner at this point. I'd love to see Monmouth and perhaps Dallas, depending on what happens with their plans. But Just sort of thinking out loud.
A couple key points to that. Independence has, so our water right is a regional water right.
Yeah.
And so it helps to regionalize any of these projects. So it assists Independence in being able to get federal assistance to construct the infrastructure for themselves, if it also could be used for the region. And as much as I'd like Monmouth to be at the table in the very beginning to share some of these initial costs, us being a partner and being part of the infrastructure construction will allow us to get an extension to be able to allow others to come forward later and potentially use our water rights. So even if it ends up just being Polk County and Independence, let's say, that doesn't sound very regional, but it is preserving the ability to have for other water providers to have access in the future. And if we don't partner, then we never would.
So
and
there's no risk currently that it won't be sized for that regional benefit.
Independence has expressed to Polk County that they are committed to sizing this for the region, at least for Polk, and probably for the other, but that's still in negotiation,
of course,
right? And so, I don't want to speak for Independence, but I feel very confident that we're going to be able to come to some type of a solution where we can get these water rights extended.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what kind of deals are made in order to do that, I don't know, but I think that there's a willingness there to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that having the regional project really helps when it comes to accessing federal money.
Yeah.
To build this is incredibly expensive, and that's I think a lot of the concern that maybe Monmouth has, because they really weren't planning for this necessarily with their water master plan for this near term.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. Independence has been doing that and has been seeking federal funds. They've been a good partner. I feel comfortable that we're going to be able to protect our water right and these additional water rights that Independence and Monmouth have on the Willamette. But it's going to be up to this Board of Commissioners after the close of this project to work through those IGAs with those communities and figure out, what is our fair share and how do we raise money and what do we need to get out of these different agreements. We've made it clear, Commissioner Pope and I, through this process, that what Polk County really wants to be able to see is the ability for any water provider in Polk County in the future to be able to come and have access and not have one of these communities like Independence or Monmouth or whoever say no.
Right.
That there's a structure there to where it's more collaborative in determining who's going to have access. Now, how much they pay and whether it's economically feasible is completely up in the air, but they just can't close the door to future access. And we've expressed it, that's essentially what we really want to see.
That's great. And one more question. Do we have a sense of if this is built out, how that will affect our future water deficits or surplus, or like what is the overall benefit? Do we have a sense of that, or do we have to look at the study?
Yeah, so it meets our 2050 deficit,
mm-hmm.
our projected deficit to 2050. Lucky Mute says that their supply and deficit are equal out to 2070. We went through and looked at everyone's water master plans and worked with those water providers to see really what type of scarcity they're going to be facing and whether this could help. Independence and Monmouth definitely are, in Dallas, are facing scarcity. Dallas faces the greatest scarcity and the greatest risk. Dallas is pursuing their own stored water project. And if they are able to gain approval for their stored water project, that would provide tremendous opportunity for our region to provide regional water. And we likely would be less dependent on the Willamette River. So if you remember, we really started out wanting to pursue a water storage project in Polk County that could be used regionally. And through that process, we discovered that the economic limitations to that in order to be able to construct that. Where we were looking, we really needed to have 2 dams in order to make it work. And it was just cost prohibitive. And so we hedged our bet by applying for a water right on the Willamette in 2007, because the water study essentially said, without a large water storage facility likely isn't going to work, and you would be dependent on doing smaller water storage projects, and getting any stored water project in the Willamette Valley is very complicated and difficult. We have endangered species. It's a very complicated process. And so the likelihood of being able to have enough of those storage projects in order to meet our deficit was pretty low, but the Willamette was a tremendous source. And so we hedged and we applied for this water right on the Willamette. And the treatment technology has come a long ways. Wilsonville and the metro areas, depending more on the Willamette. Corvallis has been using the Willamette for some time. But really, past Watchang, in the metro area, those treatment facilities have proven to be effective and to work. And it's more clear today what those costs are like in order to make that happen, where 20 years ago it was you could poke a lot of holes in that argument because there was just so many unknowns. So if Dallas is able to get a stored water facility, that could provide a tremendous amount of water for the region. It could use the same intertie type system that we looked at, going the opposite direction. It could provide a lot of assistance to Lucky Mute to shore up Lucky Mutes. They have pressure problems with their system that could help with that. We really hope that Dallas is able to see their project to light. If they can't, this is still an opportunity, and they have the biggest deficit, and they would benefit the most from an interconnected regional system.
It really depends on the feasibility of their current plans.
It's the cost. We're talking $140 million to connect in Dallas, and until you're facing water scarcity in the near term, it's kind of hard to figure out how you're going to deal with those costs. So this project is really all about being able to make sure that we have the opportunity to address these issues in the future, right? And that's what we want to preserve, and that's why we started this. We would hate to see our water right be lost just because we couldn't work together to figure out how to even get an extension. And we've crossed that hurdle. And these bigger questions about when our communities start to experience scarcity and what they're going to be willing to finance and how, I won't be here.
Yeah. But it's good that we're setting a foundation of collaboration.
Absolutely.
And regional thought in this, sort of focus on the eastern side of the county, but, there'll be conversations depending on what happens with Dallas on the western side too. And of course, Fall City is a partner in that too, potentially. So this is just fantastic work. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
It's pretty amazing how Polk County took the lead on this. So we are not in the water business, but yet you reached out and locked up the water for our growth in our communities. And it's amazing how much water one community can work in a day. It's just unbelievable. But I just want to commend you on all of that, Austin. It's great bringing these communities together to fix this going forward. If we tried this today with all the federal requirements or restrictions on water usage and water rights today, I don't know if we could have gotten this done. So the foresight's amazing. So thank you. Great job. Good. All right. Well, there's going to be more to come.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look forward to that.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any non-listed items today?
No, sir. No, sir.
With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.